Hi guys, welcome back or welcome to my podcast. Cheers to my 20s. In today's episode, I'm doing the having a drink, drinking tea bit. And in this episode, actually, first of all, can you guys just recognize my cute mug? I got this mug a couple days ago. I saw it and I was like, I need to get this for the podcast. And so the budget is up. Like, look at how cute this is. And today we're having raspberry and pomegranate and green tea. And well, I guess raspberry and pomegranate flavored green tea. And this is the box. It's the brand called Ahmed Tea. Doing the influencer bit. And actually, I'm not gonna lie, I had it before, and it's really good. I'm in a green tea phase, and so I'm pretty sure I'm gonna love it. Wait, did I have tea like last time? And I think I also chose the same tea last time as well. I really can't remember, but if I did, we're just gonna act like that didn't happen. And like low key, this episode is kind of an extension of the last episode where I kind of talked about self love and stuff. And the last point I made was about self sacrificing love in women. And I said I'm gonna make another episode about that. And here we are. So before we start, let's take a sip, rate the tea, and then we're gonna get right into the topics. And I just spilled everywhere, like I did last time. And you know what? I think it's just a rite of passage, you know? Can a girl be a little bit messy? I feel like, you know what, it's valid. Okay. It's just so good. It's just so good. I think I added too much sugar, but I'll think about that next time. And you know what? It's a work in progress. We're figuring out the formula. We're figuring out what works, what doesn't work. So, in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about self-sacrificing love specifically in women. And I feel like this is a topic that's so important. Like, if I had to learn one lesson at 22, it was self-love. Like, that is the biggest lesson that I'm still learning. And I think it's a lifelong journey. Like, I don't think you ever like reach it. It's kind of like happiness, you know? Like, it's not something like you can like fully acquire, but it's only something like you can try to practice in your everyday life and like pay attention to certain things. And like, that's how like you kind of practice it or embody it. But it's not something you can like own, because it slips away, right? Like, we go through different phases in life and stuff. So I'm gonna try to not sound too preachy, but like low key, low key, low key, low key, it's my calling. Like, I feel like if anything I preach, like, I don't know, it's in my blood. What am I gonna do about that? First of all, I think what sparked this niche interest of mine to like dig deeper into like self-love and like read and watch podcasts that are related to that is, again, like I said, like 22 was crazy for me. Actually, no, 21 was crazy. And then I think I spent a large chunk of 22 trying to recover and heal from the crazy shit that happened when I was 21. And I think through that process, like, of letting myself feel things and reading things and watching things, like, I just started really falling in love with the idea of like self-love and like how is it practiced. And I came across this podcast called the Wild Geese podcast on YouTube. And this girl called Anna Howard, the way she speaks, the way she articulates ideas and emotion, like she like actually outside of this world, like, I love her podcast so much. It's like my favorite like thing to do in the morning, just watch her podcast. And like, I'm not even joking, like, I have a notebook and I take notes as like I listen to the things she says, because they ring so true. And like, I have never felt that seen in my life. So she has this video that I came across a week ago called Why Selfish Women Heal Societies. And watching that video, like, it just like actually changed the game for me, because she said so many things that actually rang so true, like how most of the advice you see in self-help books are actually catered or like tailored towards men, right? Like, for men to reach a higher self or a higher sense of self, like, a lot of the practices they have to engage in is like kind of, dismantling their ego and like being more selfless, working on their emotional intelligence. Like, they're all like these things that I feel like women already kind of have, right? And she made this really, really good point, and I don't want to like butcher like the words she used, so I'm just gonna play you the clip right now.
That a lot of that advice just didn't apply to them, that it was so much about losing yourself and your ego, and so many women don't even have an ego to lose. When I reflect on this, I think of one of the most prevalent compliments that mothers receive are how selfless they are. And of course, nobody wants to be qualified as selfish, but also, if I turn that word over in my head over and over again, it doesn't sound like a compliment. Selfless? She doesn't have a self? And that's supposed to be like the thing to strive for.
Just talking about like how women like don't even have an ego to begin with, so why are you telling me to dismantle my ego? And like that actually rang true for me. Like I don't think that's all women, but a good amount of women like have been told time and time again as they're growing older to put others before themselves, right? So our baselines are not actually the same, and so the kind of self-love advice that we would get should be kind of different, right? Throughout the video, like there's parts that I really related to. There's a part where she says, disappointing people is practically a rite of passage in creating a life that is yours, rather than one your parents, family, friends, or even a younger, more conditional version of yourself might have imagined for you. So I think a part of self-love or putting yourself first, but not in a way that makes you lose community, right? Like I'm not saying we need to be selfish, but we need to engage with ourselves and the things we feel internally and our intuition and the things we know are better for us that we neglect for so long. Like there has to be a middle ground, right? And I think the whole thing is about just kind of finding that middle ground. And then in the comment section, like there's a lot of discourse about the things she talked about, and I want to read you some of the comments that actually rang true to me. Someone said, I perceive boundaries not as a means to sever relationships, but as an expression of assertiveness, a quality that women in particular may struggle to embrace due to societal expectations of being accommodating and self-sacrificing. Like I said, like it's not a practice where you become selfish or any of that, but it's like you also can't also go your whole life just like accommodating to others and putting others' needs before your own. And this is actually a trope that you see a lot in The Eldest Daughter, like where a lot of the pressure is kind of put on her, like the third parent. And actually I am the youngest of my siblings, and I really don't know where I got those traits from. Like I've had many conversations with my sister where she says like that I have a lot of tropes and traits of the eldest daughter, right? Where I care for my community before I put my needs first. And I've lived that way for so long that I had to pause like last year and be like, wait, hold on, like I'm actually the youngest, like actually. And a lot of, even when I do that, even in friend like settings, like it's also not appropriate because your friend is your equal, right? They're not like someone you need to nurture or kind of put before you. I think you and your friend should both be on the same pedestal, right? I think it's something that I had to pause and reflect on a lot. And it's not just in that, like I think a lot of media actually that I gravitate towards, like I didn't think about why do I love these movies so much, right? Like, but now it's actually making a lot of sense. Like one of my favorite movies ever is Little Women, and I think Little Women is one of the most important like feminist media like all women actually need to watch. So for the longest time I related to Joe, right? Like of just wanting your own way in your life and like wanting to be outspoken and wanting to stand for yourself, and I wanted to be her so badly, yet I fell short of that. Like a lot of the times I do not go after what I want the way that she does, you know? And then another character that comes to mind is Kat from 10 Things I Hate About You. Like I sometimes rewatch these movies low-key to like absorb their personalities. Like I don't do that because I lack one, but it's more the fact that I think I'm kind of porous, and sometimes the media I consume like actually affects me, or like I internalize some of the traits I see. And so I feel like when I do watch 10 Things I Hate About You and I see how Kat like is just outspoken, she doesn't take shit from anyone actually, I really admire that, and I've always wanted to be that. But it's really, really hard because a lot of this shit is like internalized into me because of my upbringing, because of society. Maybe some of it is because of my personality as well. But that is just something I always admired, of how outspoken they were, and how they advocated for themselves, and how they just went after what they wanted, right? Obviously that comes with its own kind of repercussions. You are seen as an outcast, you're seen as this crazy woman, you know, you're seen as loud, you're seen as all these things, that you're difficult, you know. But honestly, I think the more and more I'm realizing is that, like, I would rather be true to myself and live in alignment with what I want, and also still have a community, of course, rather than keep accommodating like this, because actually the effects are bigger than you might realize. I think a lot of chronic illnesses and a lot of chronic diseases that people develop are from stress, like long-term stress, and that stress comes from putting other people first all the time, right? And self-sacrificing. And so I think it just all made sense why I admire these women. It made a lot of sense why. And the hardest part about all of this is that, like, I was that one day, like, and I don't know what happened throughout my life, which like life events happened, or maybe I just got socialized into like being more timid and less outspoken and less, like, you know, assertive about the things that I want and the things that I need. It's kind of like just getting back to that. As I was watching the episode, obviously I took some notes, and there are certain quotes that really resonated with me. She said, "There are things I want to be that I already was." And I was like, why would you say that to me? Because like that is so true. Like there are things that I want to be that I already was. Like in the past I was so outspoken. I was so like myself, like, and I think that was the happiest I ever was, honestly. And I think there's obviously a middle ground. I'm grateful for the lessons of empathy that I learned growing up. I'm grateful for the wisdom, the maturity that I've gained over the years. But I think I still want to get back some of that, like that protective like sense of self that I had before. Yes, I was labeled as like a fire starter, but at the same time, like I was aligned with my true sense of self, right? And I think now that I'm 22, turning 23 in like 3 weeks, right? I think I want to get some of that back. And then in the last thing she mentioned in her video that like really resonated with me, and I think that is something I will go back and watch time and time again. She wrote this little like personal essay, right, from her notes. And this is just an excerpt from it, but I would highly recommend you go watch the full thing. She says, when did I go from special as an assumed state of being to special as an endowment that I should act coy about, or special as a notification I need to keep refreshing the feed to find, or special as a state of being that a man has any power to take away? And she was talking in this personal essay about when she was young, like she had this assurance that she was special, you know, and this whimsical look to life that everything she perceived would confirm that belief that she had about herself, and that how that kind of changed over time as she grew older. And I think all of life, I think maturing, I think being in your 20s is all about getting in touch with that, like I said, like all these things I feel like we inherently kind of are born with, you know, and then life kind of beats it out of us, and then when we're in our 20s or 30s, like we're kind of just trying to get back in touch with those parts of ourselves. I think two real people that like I actually look up to, I think these two women, like the way they carry themselves, like it's not the traditional sense of cool, like they're cool in their own way, in how they embody themselves and how they carry themselves and how they actually, like I feel like they are the closest to self-love. Obviously I don't know them personally, but like the way they present themselves, it feels very true, it feels very genuine and aligned with who they are, and they do it unapologetically, and it is seen as cool, not as weird, you know. And the first is definitely Kiki Palmer. Like guys, the way I look up to this woman, like obviously I don't know her but like low-key that's twin. Like the way she carries herself and the things she does, like no one can look at Kiki Palmer and say, oh, she's kind of weird, oh, I don't like her. Like no one doesn't like Kiki Palmer. Like she is Kiki Palmer, like hello. So just the way she carries herself and the way she's just goofy and funny and like loud and all these things that I am as well, but people love her for it, you know? And sometimes I genuinely just sit there and ask myself, like, what would Kiki Palmer do? And like, I do that thing because, hello, she's the woman. And another person who's aligned with that is Quinn Blackwell. And obviously, I grew up on the internet, so like everyone knows who Quen is, right? And just like the way Quen expresses herself, like she is a Victoria's Secret model, like she is a YouTuber, she did all these cool things, like, but she is still like herself, like she's funny, she's like goofy, like she's quirky, like, but not in like a cringe way, like she does it in a cool way, you know. And for the longest time, like I just feel like I had to accept the idea that like I'm never gonna be the nonchalant cool, like I just, that is not me, that will never be me, I will never be the nonchalant mysterious cool, like at the end of the day, like I will be like the Kiki Palmer or Quen cool, you know, if that makes sense. And I think it's just accepting that like who you are and how you present yourself, and like trying to embody that, you know. And I don't know how that is done in practice, I'm still learning, but those are just two people like I thought about that aligned with what I'm trying to like kind of describe. Okay, so another piece of media that like I feel like every woman needs to consume is a book called Women Who Run with the Wolves. Okay, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but like the things I've read in this book, I swear to God, it changed everything for me. I'm gonna give you like some context on what the book is about. It's kind of self-help, but it's done in a way that is actually interesting, and like I actually wanted to read it. So it's basically a book about reconnecting with your intuition as a woman, right? And reconnecting with your instincts and reconnecting with yourself, and trying to get back that, you know, that part of you. And it basically does it through referencing like folklore stories, so like Bluebeard and like all these stories, like some I think mythology, I'm not sure, but I still haven't finished the book, I'm still in the beginning of it, but like I already learned so much, so I feel like everyone needs to read it. And I'm just gonna read you some parts from it, and so that you can kind of get an idea and decide for yourself if you want to read it or not. She says, when we lose touch with the instinctive psyche, we live in a semi destroyed state, and images and powers that are natural to the feminine are not allowed full development. When a woman is cut away from her basic sources, she is sanitized, and her instincts and natural life cycles are lost, subsumed by the culture or by intellect or by the ego, one's own or those belonging to others. The whole book is just kind of reconnecting with your instincts as a woman. And I feel like that is a lesson like we all need to learn. And it is also highly linked and related to self-love. Like I feel like they're just intertwined, you know. I really like the part about Bluebeard. If you don't know what the Bluebeard story is, it's basically a folklore story about three sisters, and I'm paraphrasing here, so like, you know, if I say anything wrong, like don't hold me accountable for that. The Bluebeard story is basically about three sisters, right? And this man comes and tries to marry the oldest sister, and she kind of refuses, and the second sister, and then she refuses, and then the final sister, the third youngest sister, she says okay. So he basically takes the youngest sister to his castle, and they're living in the castle together. So one day, as he's leaving, he points to this door in the castle, and he tells her to not open that door, and that is the only requirement he's asking of her. And so he leaves, and she plays and plays and plays, and then finally something in her tells her to open the door, but she kind of dismisses it and keeps playing and playing and playing, and days go on. And then one day when he leaves, she just finally gives in and decides to open the door. And the second she opens the door, she sees all these skeletons of other women he has married before her. And the second she sees the skeletons, she decides to escape and return back to her sisters. And the story is basically about intuition and how women sometimes dismiss their intuition even though they know better. And here's the part that, from the book that she wrote about this. She says, however, the young wife was fooled herself. Initially, she felt fearful of Bluebeard. She was wary. However, a little pleasure out in the woods causes her to overrule her intuition. Almost all women have this experience at least once. As a result, she persuades herself that Bluebeard is not dangerous, but only idiosyncratically, eccentric. Oh, how silly. Why am I so put off by that little old Bluebeard? Her wildish nature, however, has already sniffed out the situation and knows that the blue-bearded man is lethal. But the naive psyche disallows this inner knowing. The error of judgment is almost routine in a woman so young that her alarm systems are not yet developed. She is like an orphan wolf pup who rolls and plays in the clearing, heedless of the 90-pound bobcat approaching from the shadows. In the case of the older woman, who is so cut away from the wild that she can barely hear the inner warnings, she too proceeds smiling naively. Many women have literally lived the Bluebeard tale. They marry while they are yet naive about predators, and they choose someone who is destructive to their lives. They are determined to cure that person with love. They are in some way playing house. One could say that they have spent much of time saying, his beard isn't really that blue. And then she goes on and says, as long as a woman is forced into believing she is powerless and or is trained to not consciously register what she knows to be true, the feminine impulses and gifts of her psyche continue to be killed off. To adjoin the instinctual nature does not mean to come undone, change everything from left to right, from black to white, to move the east to west, or act crazy or out of control. It does not mean to lose one's primary socialization or to become less human. It means quite the opposite. The wild nature has a vast integrity to it. It means to establish territory, to find one's pack, to be in one's body with certainty and pride, regardless of the body's gifts and limitations, to speak and act in one's behalf, to be aware, alert, to draw on the innate feminine powers of intuition and sensing, to come into one's cycle, to find what one belongs to rise with dignity, to retain as much consciousness as possible. As in all art, she resides in the gut, not in the head. She can track and run and summon and repel. She can sense, camouflage, and love deeply. She is intuitive, typical, and normative. She is utterly essential to women's mental and soul health. Whatever dilemma a woman finds herself in, the voices of the older sisters in her psyche continue to urge her to consciousness, to be wise in her choices. They are the voices in the back of the mind that whisper the truth that a woman may wish to avoid, for they end her fantasy of paradise found. Like, can we just like have a moment of silence to internalize all of that? Like, that is absolutely insane. Like, why would you say that to me? No, and like, you know what? The parts that hit me when she said, but the naive psyche disallows this inner knowing. How many times did you know better and you were proved that like actually you were right and you were not crazy, but like you kind of dismissed yourself, you know? That is something I've actually struggled with for so long. Like, I always feel like, oh my god, I'm crazy. Like, oh my god, there's no way I know this. Like, but then I'm always proven right. Like, that is something I've always had to struggle with, convincing myself that I'm not crazy, you know? Like, convincing myself that I actually was right all along and that I knew better and that I recognized the pattern, that I kept telling myself that it's not true, it cannot be true, but then it's true. Like, you know, and I feel like all women go through this. Like, you know better. In your gut, you know better. In your gut, you know what aligns with you, you know what doesn't work, but you dismiss it. You dismiss it. And for what? For society, for all these expectations that others are putting on you? No, please, love. Like, listen to yourself. This is why, like, I highly recommend this book for anyone who, like, just is in a phase where they want to reconnect with themselves and just kind of read something that brings them back to that center. Um, and I remember Anna Howard said something along the lines of like, if you had to think about it, like if you had to visualize it, think about you're in the middle, right? And you draw this circle around you, and everything inside this circle is sacred, right? You are sacred. And basically, as you're going through life, you choose and decide what who and what you want to bring in to your sacred circle, right? That can be friends, that can be loved ones, that can be a passion, a job, a dream, whatever it is, right? And you get to pick what comes into the circle and what you choose to deem sacred to you and what you choose to leave out, you know? And I think that is such a beautiful way to visualize it, because I think for a lot of my life, I have put others and other things at the center of my sacred circle, and I've always put myself in the periphery, which is just not right, you know? Like, multiple things can be important to you at once, but you should never be in the periphery of your own life. And like, it's not just other people. Like, I have put my academics at the center of my circle at certain points in my life, when that even came at the expense of my mental health and physical health as well. I have put like work in the center of my circle, you know, like volunteering, extracurricular activities, like all these things, they're important, but you have to remember and sit with yourself and remind yourself like which things and which people you want to keep in that circle. I have some people in my life right now, some friends, some family that like are always going to be in my sacred circle, you know? But even with that, like I need to be at the center of it, you know? And I think circling back to the point where a lot of women feel crazy because they don't believe their intuition, or other people make you feel crazy for saying something that is actually, no, you're clocking a pattern, but they make you feel insane for it. I think a really good example is Love Island, babe. I've been watching that show. Wait, Loki, let me sip some tea first. Babe, I've been watching Love Island for the last like 2 weeks, and it's fun. It's reality TV, you know, we're having fun. But like, actually, I think it's actually so important because I want to talk specifically about Melanie and Sincere and like everything they've gone through. I think if there's one thing that came out of this show or like this season that I think is very important and I think I want to highlight is that I feel like everything that Melanie went through and the choices she's making, I think it definitely has held up a mirror to a lot of women who are staying in like abusive or toxic relationships where they let men treat them badly, where they keep choosing men that are harmful to their psyche, that are harmful to their internal world, that are harmful to their life, time and time again, when the men do not deserve that, you know? And I think if the show could hold up a mirror for a woman in that situation, to see Melanie go through all that, to see Melanie keep choosing this man that is destroying her life, and for them to reflect back and say, wait, am I Melanie? Like, am I doing that? Should I maybe make a better choice? I think at the end of the day, that is a good outcome in the greater good, right? Like, obviously, I still want Melanie to leave Sincere and like go find her life. Like, I swear to God, like the way her mom and her sister were speaking to her and were telling her, like, hey babe, like you deserve better, like you deserve someone who treats you better, like she is too beautiful to be dealing with this man, but like she still stays in that situation. And like, unfortunately, when someone is in an abusive or manipulative like relationship, like physically or emotionally, right, there is nothing anyone else can tell them for them to leave that situation unless they decide to, and they have to do it on their own time. Like, and that is something, that is why like I don't hate Melanie, or like I don't have any like negative feelings towards her, because I completely understand it. I think one too many women have been in those abusive situations, like, and it's not always with a man, like sometimes it's in friendships, sometimes it's in family, you know. A lot of women have been in abusive relationships where they keep staying, they keep choosing, they keep self-sacrificing and putting that other person before their own needs. And the only way they can leave that dynamic is when they actually decide it's enough. Like, that is the only way they can do so. And I've been in those situations before, you know, and it's possible. Like, a lot of women actually do leave at the end of the day, you know, and they rebuild their lives, and it's so much better and so much more beautiful for it, you know. But I just feel like Love Island is something that like I did not expect Love Island to be something that like I actually relate to, or like kind of like, obviously not to that extent, and I've experienced it like mostly in friendships. I've never dated, so like, you know, I wasn't in an abusive relationship, but like, you know, I would definitely say I was in, you know, emotionally abusive friendships before. I think it's just like, it's something that just like with time you have to learn yourself. Like, there is just nothing anyone can say or do, you know. But I think a good part of it, like I said, is watching media and content that like holds up a mirror to yourself and the situations you keep putting yourself in, you know. And so like consuming media like Love Island, Women Who Run with the Wolves, podcast essays, like things like that, that like I read, and like it speaks to something in my soul and my past experiences and makes me want to choose better for myself, you know. And yeah, I feel like that's everything I prepared for this episode. I don't know if I made a lot of sense. I feel like I cooked, and this is a topic I'm really passionate about. I feel like I can speak about this for like hours and hours and hours, and like I can just like never shut up about it because it's so important. Like, I just think this is such a core part of like self-love and learning the balance between caring for your community and showing love to others, but then also having boundaries, and then also taking care of you, and then also remembering that you're at the center of your sacred circle, you know? And I hope you guys learned something from this video. In the future, I think I'll be posting 2 more videos before my next birthday. I just kind of want to like recap and like document everything that I've learned in, you know, at 22. I think I'll post 2 more videos, one next week and one the week after. And it just, there's so many topics that I want to dive into and talk about, but it's just there's so little time, and I have a lot of other like things that I'm doing as I'm doing this podcast. But it's something that I really love to do. Like, genuinely, I'm so happy I started this podcast. And even though I know I don't do it enough to say that I love it this much, but like I genuinely do. And I love like this format as well. Like, I don't know if you guys like the last format or this format first, but actually this is about me. Actually I made this podcast for me and what I want. So low-key scratch that, I'm not asking. I don't know, I'll figure out which one I like more, which format I like more, and I think I'll just do that. That's everything I have for this week. I'm so excited for this summer. Like, there are so many beautiful things lined up, and I think with every day I'm aligning more and more with myself, and I'm aligning more and more with my self-love, and like learning how to practice that, and learning like, you know, and discernment. Like, there's just so many things, like, and there's so little time, you know. Like, I just keep thinking about the fig tree. For the next episode, if I had to guess what I'm going to be talking about, I have a lot of notes on mental health, and I have a lot of notes on friendship, so maybe I'll dive into that, but I'll see how I feel next week and if there's a more relevant topic. I also want to make a video like recapping like life events, so that like when I look back I can remember what was going on in my life. Like, it's not just all gonna be video essays. And then there's also a video essay that I've been meaning to make. I've been meaning to write it, but like maybe I'll just do a video instead. It's basically like a social commentary on the main roots of all men and women's issues based on how we're traditionally raised. I still don't know what I'm gonna do for the next episode, but it's probably gonna be next week, the same day. So next Thursday I think I'll upload. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you did, like it, share it, learn from it, save it, I don't know, you know. And again, side note, take whatever you want to internalize from this video and leave the rest. Like, I'm not advising anyone to do anything, I'm just kind of talking about my experience and my thoughts. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.